Hello and a very warm welcome. I am Gushin Garland and you're watching Firstpost. In the next few minutes, I get you the top 40 updates from around the world, only here on Fast and Factual. Let's get started. Today we begin with the latest in West Asia. Israel and Iran continue to remain locked in dangerous cycle of retaliation. Israel's emergency service reported at least 24 fatalities and 87 injuries from Iran's latest missile strikes in central Israel. Meanwhile, Iran claims 224 of its citizens have been killed since Israel's initial attack on Friday, with over 1,200 others injured. According to Iran's health ministry, most of them are civilians. Brigadier General Mohammad Kazemi, the intelligence chief of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and his Deputy General Hassan Mohaddqiq were killed in an Israeli airstrike in Tehran. This was confirmed by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in an interview. Iran's official news agency IRNA also confirmed these deaths along with one more intelligence official, General Mohsen Bagheri. Israeli military chief Eyal Zamir acknowledged the high cost of the country's attacks on Iran, warning of difficult moments ahead. Both nations continue to trade threats and missiles with calls for civilians near military sites to evacuate. Iran also warned Israeli civilians to leave vital areas. Early Monday, missiles lit up the night sky of Tel Aviv as Iran launched a new attack. Tel Aviv's sky was flooded with lights with the missiles. Explosions echoed across the city as Israel's defense system engaged in incoming projectiles. Emergency crews reached the site of the attack to assess and contain the situation. Meanwhile, Haifa, a major port and industrial hub in northern Israel, was hit by a barrage of Iranian missiles. A large explosion and fire followed the strike. The attack came just hours after another Iranian missile injured 9 residents in the city. The extent of the damage to Haifa's oil refinery and port remains unclear. Iran's Revolutionary Guards have issued a chilling warning, vowing more devastating and targeted operations against Israel's vital infrastructure. The statement published by state media declared that the campaign would continue until Israel's complete destruction. Iran has called on Britain, France and Germany to take a firm stand against Israel and push for an end to its deadly attacks. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson criticized the European nations for failing to strongly denounce what he called Israeli crimes, particularly the strikes on Iran's Natanz nuclear facility. He urged them to shift their focus towards halting Israeli aggression. The U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv has sustained minor damages after Iran's strike near the branch. According to the U.S. ambassador to Israel, the embassy and consulate in Tel Aviv will remain closed as shelter in place is still in effect. The ambassador also added that no one was injured. President Donald Trump hopes tensions between Israel and Iran end peacefully, but he also said, and I quote, "Sometimes countries have to fight it out first," end quote. This as the commander-in-chief arrives in Canada for the G7 summit, promising continued support for Israel. Meanwhile, reports say President Trump also vetoed an Israeli plan in recent days to assassinate Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, saying it could escalate the crisis further. India's Ministry of External Affairs has confirmed that its embassy in Tehran is relocating Indian students to safer areas within Iran. Officials say they are closely monitoring the evolving security situation and exploring further options to ensure the welfare of Indian nationals. The embassy remains in touch with local community leaders to coordinate safety measures. According to reports, India might evacuate its students via land border to Armenia for their safety. Now, tensions from the conflict in West Asia are said to have ripple effects as far as Canada, where the group of 7 leaders are convening in Banff. While the focus is expected to be on minimizing the fireworks in West Asia and in Ukraine, wider talks on U.S. tariffs and a global economic slowdown are also expected. President Trump, who has already arrived in Canada, makes a comeback to the international summit amid uproar over his trade policies and geopolitical stance. Ahead of his visit to Canada for the G7 summit, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Cyprus. The Indian Prime Minister hailed cooperation between the two countries, saying there is immense potential for growth. Prime Minister Modi also held a bilateral talk with the Cyprus president aimed at boosting bilateral ties and hailed Cyprus as India's trusted partner. Moving on to President Trump's immigration crackdown, the commander-in-chief has announced a renewed deportation campaign focusing on Democrat-led cities such as New York, Chicago and Los Angeles. He claimed without evidence that these cities harbor millions of undocumented immigrants who screw elections. The move follows protests against his immigration stance. French President Emmanuel Macron declared Greenland not for sale. He also condemned President Trump's reported ambitions to acquire the Arctic territory. Macron warned against predatory ambition in the region for supporting its sovereignty during tense times. According to Beijing state media, Chinese President Xi Jinping has reached Kazakhstan for the China Central Asia Summit. Before the summit, he will also hold bilateral meetings with leaders in the country. The meetings will jointly outline a new blueprint for future cooperation. The second China Central Asia Summit begins today. Thousands gathered in Athens' Syntagma Square on Sunday demanding humanitarian aid access to Gaza via Egypt's Rafah crossing. Protesters denounced Israel's military campaign, which has reportedly killed nearly 55,000 Palestinians since the October 7 Hamas-led attack that killed 1,200 Israelis. Now moving to India, authorities in Ahmedabad began handing over the remains of victims of the Air India crash. DNA tests confirmed identities, after which the remains were returned to the grieving families. The London-bound flight crashed minutes after the takeoff, killing at least 270 people on board. Families gathered outside the mortuary as the identification process continued. In a major development, a second black box was recovered, helping investigators reconstruct the moments leading to the deadly crash. In India's Pune district, at least 4 people died and nearly 38 were injured after a bridge collapsed. The incident plunged several into the swollen Rani River. The allegedly unsafe iron bridge collapsed due to the weight of the tourists on it. Prime Minister Narendra Modi condoled the deaths. Peru's Lima city was shocked by an earthquake of 6.1 magnitude. The earthquake has claimed 1 life and injured over 30 people. As per officials, no major structural damage happened due to the quake. However, the quake caused panic among residents, especially at a church during a mass. The Peruvian Navy also confirmed that there is no tsunami threat. On to climate news now. Delhi witnesses a sudden weather shift as heavy rains and strong winds swept through the city late on Sunday. While the downpour brought temperatures down, it has left several trees uprooted. The rainfall brought much-needed relief after a week of scorching temperatures. Typhoon Wu struck Vietnam and southern China with strong winds and heavy rain. 5 people lost their lives, 2 were reported missing, and farmland was flooded in central Vietnam. Schools were shut and thousands were evacuated in China's Hainan Island. The storm later weakened. Experts say climate change had made such storms stronger and more frequent. In the United States, death toll from a flash flood that hit Philadelphia and West Virginia rose to 5. 3 people still remain missing since the flood hit the region on Saturday, when 3 to 4 inches of rainfall fell in under an hour, damaging homes, roads and vehicles. West Virginia Governor Patrick Morrisey confirmed widespread damage as climate extremes go more frequent across the United States. Hundreds of climate activists protested outside the City Hall in Calgary, the city hosting the G7 summit, voicing their opposition to the international gathering. Highlighting Indigenous water rights, the activists said Canada's fresh water, which is 20% of the world's supply, is at an increasing risk. Some even said U.S. interest in annexation of Canada was about resources, not people. The protests raised growing fears about water security. The Inter-American Development Bank has launched a new green loan strategy, wherein the bank uses government money to buy loans from clean energy projects in poor countries. This allows private money to invest in new climate projects in those countries. Experts call it a game changer ahead of the COP30 in Brazil in November this year. The pilot project begins in Latin America, targeting $1 billion in green investments. On to business and tech news now. Asian stock markets keep their nerve as the conflict between Israel and Iran showed no signs of cooling, adding geopolitical uncertainty to global economic troubles. Japan's Nikkei was up 0.8%, while South Korean stocks added 0.5% earlier today. S&P 500 futures rose 0.1% and Nasdaq futures gained 0.2%, recovering from an early dip. Oil prices extend their gains as Israel and Iran trade missile strikes for fourth straight day and threatened further escalation. The escalation stoked fears of a prolonged conflict that could reignite global inflation. Brent crude futures rose 1.5% to $75.35 a barrel. US West Texas Intermediate also climbed 1.5% to $74.08. Meanwhile, the US dollar firmed against major currencies as investors sought safe havens amid the Israel-Iran conflict. The greenback rose 0.14% to 144.3 Japanese yen earlier today, while the euro was 0.14% lower at $1.15. Planemaker Boeing trips its 20-year jet demand projection, now expecting 43,600 new aircraft by 2044, down from last year's estimate. The plane maker still sees air travel rising over 40% by 2030, but city supply chain strains and 737 MAX output caps for the revision. Renault CEO Luca De Meo has announced his resignation from the automaker, saying he would leave in mid-July to pursue a role outside the auto industry. Reports suggest he is set to become CEO of Gucci owner Kering, replacing Francois's Henri Pinot, whose family controls the heavily indebted luxury conglomerate and who has been leading it for 20 years. Meanwhile, Nissan reportedly said it plans to reduce the automaker's stake in French partner Renault. The move follows a March agreement to cut cross-shareholdings from 15 to 10%. Nissan is expected to sell a 5% stake to fund new vehicle development amid tough business conditions. Australian oil and gas giant Santos has backed an $18.7 billion takeover bid from an international consortium led by Abu Dhabi's national oil company. The deal would give the consortium control of Santos's LNG assets in Australia and Papua New Guinea. The takeover bid emerged as oil prices reached multi-week highs amid Iran-Israel conflict. Activist investor Barrington Capital launched a push to overturn apparel maker Victoria's Secret's board and kill its poison pill plan. The hedge fund held over 1% in the company and cited underperformance since its 2021 spin-off from L Brands. This came as Victoria's Secret's share fell 55% this year amid a weak demand and leadership concerns. Taiwan has added China's Huawei and SMIC to its export control list alongside entities from Russia, Pakistan, Iran and Myanmar. Taiwanese companies must now seek government approval before exporting high-tech products to two Chinese firms. The move comes amid growing security concerns over China's chip ambitions and attempts to acquire Taiwanese technology. Tech giant Amazon says it will invest nearly $13 billion from this year to 2029 to expand, operate and maintain its data center infrastructure in Australia. The move aims to boost Australia's AI capabilities and marks Amazon's largest tech commitment in the country. And finally, moving to sports, we begin with cricket. It was the stuff of fairy tales in London this weekend as South Africa sealed World Test Championship final victory. The Proteas, led by Themba Bavuma, ended a 27-year ICC trophy drought by overcoming Australia to lift the famous mace. Cricket greats Sachin Tendulkar, Yuvraj Singh, AB de Villiers, Stuart Broad and others filled this South African moment of glory with glowing praises and adulation. In football, newly crowned European champions PSG cruised past Atletico Madrid for winning a start in the Club World Cup. In the French side, dominated to beat Atletico Madrid 4-0 with Fabian Ruiz and Vitinha scoring before the first half. Seny Ma-yu-lu and Lee Kang-in extended PSG's lead to 4-0 with their opponent side's goal denied in between due to a red card verdict. In tennis, German veteran Tatiana Maria won the biggest title of her career. This as she beat 8th seed Amanda Anisimova in straight sets at the Queen's Club Championships. The 37-year-old proved to be an unstoppable force at the Andy Murray Arena. This as she knocked out Grand Slam champions Alina Rybakina and Madison Keys en route to the finals. Men's world number 7 Taylor Fritz claimed her first title of the year. The American beat top-seeded Alexander Zverev in the Stuttgart Open final 6-3, 7-6. The 28-year-old Zverev is yet to win a title on grass. And finally, in F1, George Russell took Mercedes' first win of the Formula One season in Canada. McLaren's Oscar Piastri went 22 points clear in the championship after teammate Lando Norris smashed into him and retired. Red Bull's Max Verstappen, who had hoped to win for a record fourth year in Canada, took second. Russell's 18-year-old Italian rookie teammate Kimi Antonelli finished third for his first F1 podium. That's all for today. Thank you for joining us. I am Lusheen Garland and we'll see you right back here tomorrow. Stay informed and stay tuned to Firstpost.